Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you are addicted to great music, this is the place. Just subscribe below, you'll never miss an episode. Also, do us a favor, hit us up on Patreon. That helps us immensely, and there's a link for that in the description as well. Musically, the 90s were a very fruitful decade for Depeche Mode. In 1990, they truly conquered America with Violator, which sold 4.5 million copies here. It was followed by their first #1 album in the States with Songs of Faith and Devotion, and then after a long hiatus, they released Ultra in 97. That went to the top 5 in America and #1 in the UK. All three of these albums were big globally. The 90s were also a very dark time for the band, as issues of substance abuse and personal differences fractured the band. Andy Fletcher struggled with mental instability. He wasn't able to continue with the second half of the Exotic Tour in 94. Alan Wilder left the band permanently in 95. David Gahan almost died with a near-fatal overdose in mid-96. Martin Gore even contemplated breaking up the band and releasing the music that he'd written at that time as a solo project. But what doesn't kill you always makes you stronger, and this band persevered. Really set them up for the long run. I want to talk about DM in the 90s, starting with Violator, and I promised from my last video that I'd do a 90s DM fiver. Violator was released on March 19, 1990. It seemed like a harbinger of sorts, especially with the collapse of the Eastern Bloc in Europe. Martin Gore said the album was called Violator because, and I quote, "It was the most ridiculous heavy metal title that we could think of." Let's see if people get the joke. With Violator, DM matured even more with songs about relationships, power, desire, love, good and bad, incest, sin, religion, and immorality, as Martin would suggest in another interview. In my assessment, it was their third consecutive masterpiece after Black Celebration and Music for the Masses. The iconic cover was, of course, created by genius Anton Corbijn, who has also directed the seminal music videos. The album covers single rows in front of the black background. Was maybe the lasting symbol of Depeche Mode, which is huge considering so many recognizable icons throughout the band's history, from the megaphone to the sledgehammer, so many more. This band has always had superior design and style. Vastly superior. I've already shared my story of discovering Depeche Mode from hearing Behind the Wheel and being lifted above the ground. Violator was the first DM album I bought along with Catching Up With. I can still remember how it felt in my hands. And then that beautiful cover staring up at me, I felt like I had the key to the universe, and I really did. When I jammed the cassette into my Walkman and lifted the flimsy headphones to my ears, I was lambasted by the first few notes of World in My Eyes. I mean, a nuclear bomb went off inside my mind. I was addicted. Every song on that album was darkly magical, eerily satisfying. The album tracks were just as good as the singles. I mean, Blue Dress, Clean, Waiting for the Night to Fall, all breathtakingly beautiful. For 6 months, the cassette hardly left my Walkman or stereo. I listened incessantly. Then I saw the videos. Now, my parents always told me about the first time that they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and how it changed their generation thereafter. My dad said that he and his friends grew out their hair to be just like the Beatles. They bought Beatle boots. They started dressing like them. They studied their every move. Well, for me and many of you out there, our Beatles on Ed Sullivan moment was Depeche Mode on 120 Minutes. When I saw the video for Enjoy the Silence, I couldn't imagine anything greater. As Dave, Martin, Alan, and Fletch smoldered in leather and black and white, I finally understood the meaning of the word cool. It was defined before my very eyes. My cousin and I got their collection Strange 2 on VHS. I wore out the tape. Now, when Songs of Faith and Devotion was announced, it was the most exciting news that I remember hearing as a teenager. Apparently, the grunge movement had an effect on the band, especially David Gahan, as the new music incorporated a more aggressive and rock-oriented tone. This is also the point where the powers that be put that catch-all label on Depeche Mode and many other bands that were like them, alternative. David even changed his look from the clean-cut lad to the new wave hippie, if you will. Songs of Faith and Devotion was a solid album, though not the masterpiece of the last 3 albums, but Really, what band could create 4 masterpieces in a row? Maybe with the exception of the Smiths and the Beatles. Some strong album tracks on this one, with Judas being my favorite. I love the line, idle talk and hollow promises, cheating Judases, doubting Thomases. Don't just stand there and shout it. Do something about it. Great lyrics. I also appreciated the gospel feel of Condemnation. Songs of Faith was the first time my friends and I saw Depeche Mode in concert. It was glorious. It truly was a baptism of fire seeing the band that had changed my life live. I have to admit that I did shed some tears when I heard the opening synth part to Stripped. I'll never forget it. I felt like I was reborn that day. Now, I read somewhere recently that Depeche Mode broke merch records on that tour, records that had once been set by Bon Jovi and U2. It's not something that's talked about often, but buying concert merch is a phenomenal experience in itself. We should do a segment on that. When you're at the merch booth, it's just simply a wonderland. A wonderland that words could never do justice. As a teenager, you never have enough money to get everything that you want, so decisions are tough, but I remember I spent everything I had wearing that shirt for the first time after seeing your favorite band in concert, listening to their songs the day after, discussing it with your friends. It's the true definition of Afterglow. And I'm sorry, but it's lost on the kids of today. I'm not trying to be the angry old man, but going to a concert now where everybody has their phones up and they're filming the show to later put on their Instagram, it just ruins it. Whatever happened to just being in the moment with your favorite band, experiencing the music with that band live? Anyway, I digress. It was around that time that the singles, the Black Box, came out. Remember, a few of them. What an experience trying to track those down and saving every dime that I had to get one. You probably had a similar experience. Alan Wilder left in 95, and it was truly sad, especially his statement. He said, since joining in 1982, I have continually strived to give total energy, enthusiasm, and commitment to the furthering of the group's success. And in spite of a consistent imbalance in the distribution of the workload, willingly offered this. Unfortunately, within the group, this level of input never received the respect and acknowledgement that it warrants. As we all waited patiently for the next album, rumors were rampant. You probably remember this. I had heard that Martin Gore was trying to get the band recording again, but that Gahan would rarely show to the sessions and would take weeks to get one vocal recorded. Would the band break up? Then when David Gahan overdosed, the fan base was devastated. I know I was. Gahan was a survivor through and through, though, and he entered rehab, and soon the band was able to record Ultra, though it was the first album that they didn't help produce. Ultra was another really good album. I love Barrel of a Gun, Useless, especially Home. Such a feeling vocal from Martin Gore on that one. I felt it was a strong way to end the decade filled with so many highs and lows for this particular band. With that, here is my DM 90s Fiver. Number 5, It's No Good, the second single from Ultra. Musically, I feel like this one harkened back a bit to the classic Violator sound. It went to number 5 in the UK and number 4 on the US Modern Rock Tracks chart, and it broke the top 40 in the Hot 100. I feel like it was David's strongest and most sincere vocal on the record, and though the song is obviously about a relationship, Martin Gore's words could be taken a different way. I remember Anton Corbijn appeared in the video as well. Number 4, Walking in My Shoes, the second single from Songs of Faith and Devotion. It went to number 14 in the UK and number 1 on the US Modern Rock charts, the same spot as I Feel You. Corbijn did a great job with the design of this. The bird woman, freaked me out in a good way. I also love the lyrics. Now, I'm not looking for absolution, forgiveness for the things I do, but before you come to any conclusions, try walking in my shoes.
Try walking in my shoes. You stumble in my footsteps.
Even though Martin wrote the song, the way Gahan sang it you felt like it was his. A cry for help and a reminder to those who judge. Number 3, World in My Eyes from Violator. To me, one of the best opening tracks in the history of long play albums. It sets up the record perfectly and lets the listener know that you're about to get hit over the head with a sledgehammer. Andy Fletcher said of the song, and I quote, "Martin did the demo on his own. I don't remember it standing out when we heard it then, but somehow in the studio, it all came together brilliantly. Whenever I'm asked which of our tracks is my favorite, I always say World in My Eyes." Wow. It's David Gahan's confident and seductive vocal that powers this perfect song. I love the Martin Gore harmony vocal as well.
All the heavens in the motion. Let me show you the world in my eyes.
It went to number 52 in the US and number 17 in the UK. Much too low for such a banger. I mean, I always loved the cover. And really, you have to credit Anton Corbijn. At this point in the band's history, you really could count him as the 5th member. One last thing, I always love the B-side, See You Sin. Number 2, Policy of Truth from Violator. Wow, that phenomenal noir-like guitar drone really set this song apart from any other song on the record. I remember listening to this while watching Twin Peaks, which I became a major fan, still am. Because I played it while I was watching the show, and they're both really strange and eerie. For some weird reason, this song and the show morphed into one for me. I can't think of one without thinking of the other, which is a good thing. The song went to number 1 on the US Modern Rock charts and number 15 on the Hot 100 and 16 in the UK. In my opinion, though, it was head and shoulders above anything on the charts at that moment. And number 1, Enjoy the Silence from Violator. DM's first top 10 hit in the US. It topped the modern rock charts and it went to number 6 in the UK. It also hit number 1 in Spain, Denmark, and Poland. I already covered this in our 1990 segment, but this song is where the die was cast for Depeche Mode. This is where they came out of the underground for good and took their rightful place as stadium gods. Yeah, they were already doing this when music for the masses was transforming them, but this song was really the tipping point where they went from another band within modern rock to becoming the face of modern rock, if you will.
Words are meaningless and forgettable.
It inspired countless of bands of today, from Coldplay to The Killers. Coldplay, of course, even paid tribute in their video, Viva La Vida. The album version was brilliant. The opening line, words like violence break the silence, up to the ending after you think the song is over, and then David Gahan comes in with that chilling a cappella, enjoy the silence. And then you hear what sounds like a pin drop amplified 100 times. It always freaked me out when I was listening to it on headphones.
Enjoy the silence.
Just one of those perfect songs that you almost never hear anymore. In the 90s, Depeche Mode really raised the bar to an unreachable level. Since that time, I can't think of an artist in that genre that has come close to their artistic achievement. Now, to hear all these songs, click on our curated playlist below. Also, to get all these albums on vinyl or other DM merch, click on our Amazon link below in the description. Leave us a comment on this amazing band. What is your DM 90s fiver? What are your thoughts on these amazing albums? If you like our content, subscribe below, hit us up on Patreon, help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.